Good evening. Welcome to Community and Technology, where we connect the global community with news, information, and resources that we hope will help improve your life. I'm Stu Reid. I'm here with my UBI, Unconditional Basic Income co-hosts, Diana Blackwell and Enno Schmidt. Welcome, guys and gals.
Welcome.
Hello.
And today we have a very special guest all the way from India that I'm going to ask Enno to please introduce.
Well, our guest is Sarath Davala from India and the center of India, Hyderabad. And Saran is very actively in UBI issues. So he is one of the organizers of the huge basic income project in India. And I think we will talk about that a little bit. And he is chair of Basic Income Earth Network. So he has the overview on many things that happens. BN, Basic Income Earth Network, is a huge global network of scientists and activists, and is somehow the organization who gathers everybody together. Well, sorry, I start asking you a bit about that project, a pilot project in India, 8 villages in which people got an amount, unconditional income amount. I think 12 villages or even more as villages where you can compare whether people did not get the money. Could you tell a bit how that started?
Well, hi, thank you, everybody. Thank you, Stuart, Enno, and Diana for having me here. Yes, it was actually probably the largest basic income pilot, as we call it. And it was done in Madhya Pradesh, the central part of India. I think that the real background to that is that SEVA, which is a self-employed women's association, which is a women's trade union, which have been working with women in the informal economy, they felt that there is a need to experiment with something new. Because in India, one of the main problems is even as the budget allocations for poverty alleviation has been growing, the delivery mechanism has been so poor that a lot of what you call the transmission losses were happening. So the SEVA as a union, their organizers were spending a lot of time organizing, getting the existing benefits to people. So they said, let's try something called basic income. In fact, 2010, it was new to me when they told me, let us experiment this basic income, which this strange professor from UK called Professor Guy Standing is talking about. Let's try it out. Till we try it out, we won't believe it. So I said, giving money to people directly? This is bad language and bad practice. No. I was working with SEVA at that time. I said that this is not our grammar of welfare. This is not the way to do things. But then I said, okay, let's try. And I was getting a job. So why should I say no to it? Honestly, that's how it began. My journey started when I started seeing what was happening to people in the villages. So it was amazing what happened. Even I didn't expect. I think the most important thing, I think there are several things that I learned as a person working with the poor last 30 years, that in villages, usually people live in debt. They live from one debt to another. They work to pay the debt and again borrow. So in a context like that, money lenders, plus they are the landlords, plus the guys who buy their crop, they're all embodied in one person, one landlord. That's all that. Plus he also runs a grocery where they are forced to buy their grains, all that rolled into one person. So when people started having liquidity, people started having cash in their hands. Normally, they don't see cash in their hands because they work and they don't get cash. Their debt is kind of reduced. I think something happened, something really magical happened, that their dependence on this monster slowly reduced. They said, we are not going to borrow from you. We are not going to sell our crop to you. That kind of withdrawal happened. And people actually, they were not cultivating their entire land. If I had a patch of 3 acres of land, I cultivated only half an acre because that's the money I had. The rest was lying fallow. So they started cultivating more. I mean, people say, if you give basic income, people will become lazy. No, they started working double. I mean, when I saw it in the villages, we were all the qualitative team, we were staying in the villages. I said, what's going on? I mean, that was really, really shocking for a skeptic that I was at that time. So, I mean, there are a couple of many, many interesting things I can go into that, but that's really the top line. I can't hear you,
Yeah, you're muted.
Sorry. Yeah, there are many stories, and I know that from you, but maybe in particular in regard to women and girls, what happened? Some examples.
What happened with women in the villages was, it was universal, which means that we gave to rich women and the poor women. So we didn't distinguish. We just drew a line. Yeah.
Rich women, yes. That's the key word, rich women, because there has been some families and the men said, we are rich, we don't need such a basic income, we don't need it. A few days later, the women from that households came and said, well, I have no money. Yeah. Can we get it? Yeah. Just in addition. Yeah. Sarath.
Yeah. I mean, why they said that? See, what happened, we said universal. See, basic income is 5 important pillars, elements. Otherwise, it is not basic income. It has to be universal, which means everybody should get it. It has to be individual and not to the household. It has to be only cash. It has to be periodic, which is monthly. And the real cutting edge is it has to be unconditional. If you fulfill these 5, this is the gold test. If you fulfill these 5 conditions, then you are calling it a basic income. Otherwise, you're calling something else a basic income. So what happened was, when all these poor rich women said, we don't need this kind of thing, we don't know what's in it, you are taking our signature, consent signature, and you may use this and to take away our land. So okay, we said, fine, this is voluntary, we don't force you. So all the poor ordinary women, we opened their bank accounts. We were conducting training programs on financial inclusion, how to manage their accounts, and also what they can do as entrepreneurs if they wish to do. And these trainings were happening not inside some corner or a room, they were happening out in the open under a tree where everybody could see. So these women, apparently rich women, they came and said, first of all, we want to be part of this because I don't have a bank account. And second thing is, I never see cash. And the third thing is, I never get trained. We want to be part of this. You give us cash or not, we don't care, but we want to be part of this whole process. So they said, you go and convince your husbands. So they went and convinced their husbands. The husbands came and said, okay, we all want to be part of this. So the entire village was part of this. So even as we see that in every household, in the entire community, I think benefit happened, good things happened to where it was needed most. It's like this African proverb that when you let water flow, it goes to the lowest point. So this basic income can be kind of compared with the rain God gives you, and it flows where it is most needed on its own. So women, what I feel is that women do a lot of invisible work. A lot of work that is not recognized, a lot of work that is seen as natural to them. Oh, they love kids. Oh, they love to wash clothes. Oh, they love to cook. So it is made into their liking, but we never accept it as having an economic value. So when you give them money, you are actually recognizing them as an equal citizen. In addition to political citizenship, which they have apparently because they vote, I felt personally that this also gives them economic citizenship and makes them feel that they are part of this economy which doesn't recognize them. So it does something to you psychologically. when you had never had a bank account and you have a bank account, you have a bank passbook, and you can walk to the bank and collect your money and say, this is my money. There is something to it. It may seem very ordinary, but it means a lot to many women. So, I mean, that I would say the same thing to the girls as well. You know, I remember a very interesting story where a girl was studying in a hostel at a distance. And then this program started in the village. And then when we went after 4 months to the village, this grandmother, she told me that my granddaughter is studying in a school, in a hostel. She lives away. And she wrote a letter to me. The letter, she said, Grandma, I heard from my friends that there is some money being given in the village in my name. So when I come, I want that money, because children's money was given to mothers, because I want to buy a new school bag. I mean, this may seem like a very ordinary wish of a girl, but this is called entitlement. She felt entitled. That is citizenship, that you feel that this belongs to me, which means it should come to me. There can be oppression and may not be given to her, but in her mind, she knows that it belongs to her. So this sense of entitlement is a psychological outcome of unconditional and universal. Everybody who is imago Dei, who is made in the image of God, you just have to be a human being with a nose, breathing, and 2 hands and 2 legs, then you are entitled. You don't have to be tall or short. You don't have to be black or white. You don't have to be brown or with the curly hair. Only you will get. No, everybody gets. I think that did a lot psychologically. Usually decision-making in our kind of society is made by the patriarch, the male head of the family. Now, in a household situation, it's interesting when everybody is feeling entitled because money was pulled. The man who is the farmer, he says, okay, I have to buy some seeds. Now, all this money, let us put it together and let us buy seeds. Okay. So then the patriarch doesn't do it automatically. He knows that everybody is feeling entitled. They know that it is their money. He's forced to seek a very nominal consent from them. Okay, I want to use this to buy seeds. I hope you all agree, something like that. So, I mean, that could be, you can say, the rudimentary beginning of a democratic family.
Some points, and maybe you can tell the stories about it. In the beginning, when it was about the accounts, bank accounts, and there was the signature needed, the women said, well, they didn't call their name. They said, I'm the woman of, I'm the mother of, I'm the daughter of. They did not call their name. And then it was the first time that they were asked to say their name, their individual name. And that was emancipation for the woman at the first point, that she has a name. She's not just the daughter, the woman, or the wife, or the mother of someone. That was very important. And as Sarath said, at the first time, getting cash for themselves, not provided by the family under the conditions of family. And as Sarath said, and Sarath told me another story where a family put the money together and were building a new part of the house. And the child was dancing around and saying, it's my house, my new house, because it's my money. You know, it improves the self-esteem and the feeling we can do things.
Yeah.
And then that woman, in particular, and mostly women, started to enhance businesses or start new businesses in that villages. It was an activity of women in particular, and that they could avoid corruption. So usually to have to pay to the authorities and you have nothing then for your activities. And then they have had the money. They did not need approval from every side and so on. And they could go by sight of the usual corruption in that villages. And of course, the last point is, and maybe Sarath, you can tell a story on that, more independent from the money of the men. And that means also to be more free to say no. That's what Guy told me.
Can I ask a question following your statement? How much did the training or the educational part play? What role did that play in everything that you're saying for the women?
Yeah. Anyway, I think we had the advantage of having a women's trade union organizers all around in the village. So, I mean, what we call training is actually a gathering of women and spending 2 hours time. And in those 2 hours, you don't just talk about whether it is about, they had trainings about, what is it called, raising cattle, or something about the veterinary doctor will come and tell them. Veterinary doctor will speak about how to maintain these buffaloes and cows. And then he goes away after half an hour. And then women start chatting, women start sharing, women start talking about these new experiences. I think this kind of, I don't know what to call it, maybe. So it's just giving money is one thing, it activates your thing, but then organizing them around these activities to have a conversation actually enhances their sense of their own feeling, sense of dignity. And this bunch of 40 women or 30 women coming together, if they've had some new experiences, don't you think in a group of only women they will share? So I think that played a very, very important role. In fact, I have known in my own state, in my province, that in some of these adult education training centers for women, they became the centers of a big movement, a big movement of called anti-liquor movement in South India. It was there that women started talking about their common issues. And then it blew up one fine morning into a huge movement that the states around that area were forced to implement prohibition. I mean, I'm just trying to point to the power of people coming together and talking about something, and especially issues related to their dignity. There are many instrumental outcomes of having cash, but there is also something called human dignity that gets positively affected by this. That's the reason why women who don't have a bank account wanted a bank account, because that adds to their dignity. I mean, as a guy standing talks about precariat, which is a resonance of proletariat. So the precariat is a class of people who live a very precarious life, from one job to another, one identity to another. They don't have an occupational narrative. That's what the Uber drivers and Amazon delivery boys, the gig economy that we inhabit today. So who is the precariat? The central, apart from not having an occupational narrative, a person in the precariat is one who has to ask for favors, who has to be a supplicant. It's like the woman in the village, she has to ask her husband that I want to buy something. Can you please grant me that money? You know, that is being supplicant. You're a supplicant. You depend on the favors of somebody else. You don't have the autonomy to decide, okay, today I'm not going to work today. I'm going to go and buy something for myself. No, that is simply not available to a lot of women. So, as I said, there are two tracks to it. One is that money gives you instrumental value, but there is also money is giving you enormous emancipatory value in terms of introducing you to dignity, sense of self-worth.
Just to add in, for the girls, usually girls are not always sent to school, because why? So they will be in the household and then doing housework and doing what the husband is telling her to do. And then with the unconditional basic income, it was that they rethought about that, and girls were sent to school as well as boys. So they got an education as well as boys, right, Sarath? That was...
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I mean, there are two things. One is that when you give it for an extended period of time, we gave it for 17 months. When you give it for an extended period of time, people make their own small little corrections in their life. The configuration is changed. They slightly change the configuration. I'll give you an example. There's a family where there is a 4-year-old boy and 8-year-old, 9-year-old girl, and the man and the woman. Man and the woman, they go to work. They have a small patch of land, but that doesn't give them enough subsistence. They go to the neighboring village to do wage work. Okay. Every day they buy their stuff, and every day they eat. Now, when you know that you are having some cash in your hand, the woman says that, no, I will not go to wage work. After 4 months, she says, I will not go to wage work. She withdraws from wage work and she starts setting up a small shop, or she buys a couple of goats and says that a goat, I think, multiplies very fast, at least in our country. And you can sell the goat in the market, and very quickly you get the money back. And again, you can buy more and they become more. Okay. So people get into that, or people buy a cow, and then the milk is sold in the sweet shops and various places. Now, when in her absence, the girl was asked to stay at home to look after the boy. So she was not sent to school. Now, once mother comes back and does this business, starts her own business, the girl is released to go to school. Usually, feminists have been, some feminists argue that if women withdraw from the labor market, they are going to be pushed into their traditional household roles. No, they should be out in the labor market. So, but at the same time, I'm saying, look at the pathway that has led to the mother becoming an entrepreneur and the girl going to school. I mean, the whole dignity is restored. The reason why the woman prefers her own business to working under a landlord as a wage worker is the ill treatment that she faces, is that women are paid less than men. And then she has to go all the way and come back all the way. Imagine her health is not okay. Anyway, so that's one pathway that is potentially possible.
And for example, people put the money together in a small community, paid the debts to the landlords so that they become independent of the landlord, and paid the money then slowly back by the unconditional basic income in their private community. Wasn't it like that they came out of the slavery of the landlord's power?
Yeah.
I mean, debt slavery.
I don't know. It's the employer's language to say the slave loves his chains. It's employer's language. It's not the language of slave. Now, every slave has the desire to get out of those chains. I mean, you have to be completely in a coma not to desire that. So similarly, every opportunity anybody gets to get out of that landlord's grip, they try to make. So the amount of money which we gave was not very high, but put it together for 6 months, it becomes something. 5 people put it together, it becomes something. Otherwise, individually, it may not mean something. So you put it together for 6 months, and then you say, oh my God, this landlord A is wretched, he's killing me. Landlord B will also kill me, but at least it is less. So you make choices from a very oppressive employer to a less oppressive employer. I'm not saying life doesn't happen dramatically from one day to another. It happens incrementally. So that is one important. We saw people slightly shifting their sales and then saying, okay, let me go and work here. or let me withdraw from it for 3 months. I'm not going to do anything.
Let me just say
because-
this.
Yeah.
I do understand your analogy, but if you would like to, add to it or tweak what I'm going to say, please do. I'm hearing what you're saying, but I'm saying here in the US, and I have to, because I know a lot of the people here will understand what I'm going to say. The slavery would come under such a system as the welfare system here in the US, where they may not have enough, so they have to go to the government and get money from them. But the government in turn says, I'll give you money, but you're going to have to work it off. So it's not free money that they're getting. They're still enslaved. They were enslaved because poverty put them there. But they go to get help and they remain in poverty because they're now indebted to a system, the government, which says we require work habits. So what I see that an basic income does is bringing them from under any in slavery. Am I,
Yeah. Absolutely, absolutely, Diana. You've really put your finger on the absolutely, that's the point, that what the governments are doing is exactly the master language, the language of the master, to say that why should you get anything free? Why should I give you anything free? You have to work for it. Okay, I don't care what work you will do. I'll give you the money, but you just go and do some work because you're not entitled. That is where they are stripping us of our dignity. I want the same government or to be recognized as I am, not because of my labor. So I'm asking the governments to respect the human being and not the labor. You see the distinction between the human behind the labor. So you're valuing only my labor. So workfare is a curse. I think we will realize this eventually, that workfare is a curse. I think we have to give money to people unconditionally.
And that was the main effect of the unconditional basic income, is what it was not high enough to live from, right?
Yeah.
But the impact was that you are not told that you are too stupid to know what is best to do for your life. It was given to you, and the decision made then were much more effective and reasonable than all the structures given by the institutes, what you have to do, and so on. So the people did much more reasonable and helpful decisions, don't they?
Actually, that's what I'm emphasizing, that there is a master's language and there is the slave's language. In fact, I think I see this everywhere. I see this, as I travel within India, as I travel across the world, I think everywhere it is the same mentality which says, no, you don't give anything free. But why is it free? It's not your money. It is the human heritage. Science and technology are human heritage. It belongs to everyone. Science happened over centuries. It's not Mark Zuckerberg or it's not Elon Musk who has invented all that in one day. So why should you feel entitled? This is absolute nonsense. You're standing on the shoulders of all your fathers and grandfathers and fathers' fathers and fathers' grandfathers who made science and who made technology. So when it is human heritage, give them that part. Don't feel so entitled. I'm sorry. I can't accept that kind of entitlement.
Let me just interject. You're listening to WHCR 90.3 FM, the voice of Harlem. Community and Technology, our UBI show with Diana Blackwell, Enno Schmidt, and special guest, Sarath Davala. Sarath, we're talking about slavery and the master slave mentality. And you talked about just a moment ago about how you see this across the globe. If you will, talk a little bit about just the shift that you're seeing in the employment crisis globally and how that is driving us, or hopefully driving us towards UBI.
Yeah, Stuart, I think if we look at all the reports which I have quoted in that article, I think we are very rapidly facing that employment crisis. I think employment is not going to be at all same at all, even what it was 10 years, 15 years ago, when you had a regular job. Today, I think we are looking at a future, nobody is going to have a regular job. Maybe some professions which are like where people are already wealthy or people are already better off, they may have, because they are critical, supposedly critical. But I think increasingly the global business models and the artificial intelligence and the technology that is available, I think employers, people who employ other people and give them a wage to work, are going to use less and less of human labor. I think they will depend a lot on machines. They will depend a lot on the software and blah, blah, blah. So we have no choice. How are nations going to look after their people? People will not come onto the streets and scream saying that we are starving. No, most often they simply starve and die. That's what happens all over Africa, all over many countries in Asia. People simply don't eat, then that's what we call malnutrition. Women don't eat enough. That's why the child is born and he dies. The child is born, mother dies. I mean, why? These are all the slow death that happens. I think we should be civilized enough to recognize that we are in a crisis, employment crisis. All our methods are old. They belong to Second World War period. William Beveridge model of welfare and thinking. That's why I'm emphasizing and again that there is whole master's language and the slave's language. Now, we should not accept master's language in the name of democracy, in the name of socialism, in the name of, I think masters are coming in different masks. They're just wearing masks. These are masters with different masks, but they are talking the same language, that I will not trust you with the money.
And
I will have 10 inspectors watching you what you're doing. I will ask you to go and clean up that place, even if I can't give you a good, reasonable job. Just go and do something. Don't expect anything free. Whereas,
I think,
go on.
I think that's the biggest threat we are facing now. So that people are not capable to think and not capable to see that this is an advantage, that people do not need to do that work longer on. That is not interesting for humans because machines can do that as well. And that people must become free to do the real work. So the important work, the necessary work, which is not done very often. First, looking for each other, taking care for each other, not just by helping those who need help in this obvious sense, but to become much more sensible to what people are doing, where we can help each other. Then climate crisis is the point. And it is not faced by the concerns and the huge enterprise and so on. People need to do that. So we as a society need to develop consciousness, much more consciousness. We need to look to a society with new political rules, more democracy. We need new forms of enterprises. Profit-driven enterprises are destroying the world because profit-driven enterprises are not for other people. You see that in the pharma industry, for example. Of course, if profit is a goal, it's best to have a pandemic situation with us. You know, they are unhuman, totally unrational, destructive ideologies we are believing in. We are talking about goal of an enterprise is profit. And we don't know that when we think like that, it's simply wrong. I can tell you why. And it is destructive and it's killing. But we are believing in that. So that's why I say we do not think about what we are believing in. We are living in ideologies. We are living in a dangerous time because the ideologies of you have to work to get an income that means to have the right to live. Profit is a goal of an enterprise. These are evil, wrong, unhuman, anti-society, anti-earth ideologies. And we're believing in that. And then we are wondering Why is it so bad? Why is the
Yeah.
gap growing between the rich and the poor? Because we all believe in those structures and we do not think about it. You know, people has to become more free to do valuable work that helps others, the nature, the animals, the climate, the weather, the soul, the spirit, and so on, other human beings. And this is a revolution and evolution of what we understand, what economy is, what work is. Enhance, improve relationships, improve your own capacities, capabilities of being a human being. All those things are real challenging work, but we stick on old kinds of employment and work from the last century. And that is a huge threat, just to keep people busy, avoid that they come to their own life and their own goals and what they really want to respond to. So hindering the whole society, and last sentence, that is one reason why communism broke down, because they did the same thing. So everybody has had a job, regardless whether that is needed or whatever. And that is in capitalism a threat too. So we can be happy to have the development of machines and digitization. We just have to decide what is digitized and what not, because that's our decision as human beings. We have to know that we are at the top and we decide what has to be done, and we can be happy to be free to rethink work and to do much more work, in particular between us as human beings, being much more aware of how do you feel and where are you at the moment in your life, and so on and so on. That's what I just briefly or so briefly want to add.
Yeah,
to that.
I completely agree with you. I completely agree with you. I mean, people sometimes when they look at work and then say that you have to earn your living, when they emphasize that as a cardinal principle of your human life, I think the Social Democrats also do it, saying that work gives you self-worth, work gives you self-respect, work gives you the meaning of life. Otherwise, you will be simply like ash blown away. I mean, you will get lost. Now, that is what anchors you. I think it's absolutely wrong. Now, some people also refer to Bible and say that by the sweat of thy brow thou shalt live. That is the meaning of your life, which means that you have to work hard and do. But then that to compare it with today, the way Master is using it, it is wrong. Because God was not standing there as an inspector, as a master. God was a loving God. He loved. And then he said, go. If my father shouts at me and said that, go, write your exam and pass. I don't see that as an inspector telling me. So you should, the same God also said, go and this is your dominion. Go and give the names to the plants and animals, and you be the king there. So, I mean, to kind of refer to all that as a kind of a Christian ethic, that only if you work, then you deserve, is absolutely flawed. I think people are capable of many more things, a better life, which we visualize, that if you really, really give them an unconditional something.
Or to turn it just around, people has to work. And that means they has to do what they really want to do, where they really are in, and where they develop the circumstances around too. The conception of work is more and more not the conception of work for human beings. And the effort to be done is often not conducted. People are, sorry for that, very lazy in the regard of looking to the times what is needed. Where is the need? They are very lazy in sticking in old habits and old ideologies. So I can just turn it around and say, okay, God said in the slap of the face, yes, do it. That means thinking, looking what is real today, and you will see we are living in old-fashioned ideologies, and one of the most worth of that is people has to work to get an income in the relation of an employment. a paid job, but there cannot be purchasing power for all the new things. You know, everything you are doing in new is not linked to purchasing power immediately. So that people buy things is for known need and demand, but we has to develop much more new things, new forms of, and so on and so on. And that is always not paid in the first moment. And so we need to be free with an unconditional basic income to develop the world by our values and not by restrictions and old slave thoughts.
So how do we transform and reprogram our thinking? That's what I hear us saying, is that fundamentally our thinking has to change from the old model, from the last century, from the last millennium, as to what our worth is, how we determine our worth, and how we organize ourselves. That thinking has to change. I know UBI programs are a stimulus to stimulate that rethinking and transformation, but how do we really kind of scale that up so that we can really have a more impactful and global transformation that's so needed?
Stuart, I think all of you know, listeners, we had a scientist, a physicist called Stephen Hawking, who died a couple of years ago, and he did a lot of work. In the end, he did with Reddit, he did Ask Me Anything. In that, he said very, very clearly that the technology, the power of technology that we have today is such that it alone can give a decent life to the entire mankind, provided the owners of these machines allow everybody to share this wealth. If not, we will move towards a miserable existence. He said, in my lifetime, I am not seeing that happening. The owners are willing to share this wealth with the rest of the mankind. And he also said that technology is human heritage. Some people have cornered it. Okay. Now, what is it that we have to first of all acknowledge and recognize that there is something wrong with the current disposition. I mean, we did not wait till the crisis comes and hits us. I think it is coming. It's almost there. I think a lot of us can see the crisis is very, very close, and there's a convergence of several crises happening. So I think we really have to create circumstances where people can live according to their will. I think that is happening not because we don't have money, we don't have resources. That is happening because we are still living with new problems, but old solutions. And it suits one class of people, so that's why it has to persist. They use law, they use force, they use persuasion, they use many things in order to keep the system going. I think we have to keep talking about this and not accept this push that against the crisis, this push that is happening. I don't want to talk about inequality because it's a huge subject. I want to talk about deprivation. That is my priority. What is this kind of a system depriving Stuart of? What is it depriving my brother? What is it depriving my sister in that last village? What is it depriving the last man, woman, and child? Is there a way in which we start thinking about that deprivation? We should not deprive people of their basic life. I think God has given, I believe in God. God has given this life, and we have to enable and help that life to flourish and not convert it into a slave.
Yeah, put the people at the first place. That's the right order.
Yeah.
So, but one question more about coming from Indian, the pilot project to BN. Often, so in the United States, there are pilot projects and has been, and many are planned, and there are mayors for UBI planning projects. And also we at that show always have had in mind maybe to start something in Harlem. What is your suggestion or idea? Would that be good? Can that be helpful? Or are there already enough pilot projects, or what is the value of that? And in particular, pilot projects are ending, and then people are again in the same situation as before, and that can be even worse because now they saw how it can be different. And you have your experiences in India with also that important issue, what's after a pilot project. So first, should we start in Harlem? And second, what happened after the ending of the project in India?
Can I just ask one other thing so you
Yeah.
can add it on to the answer? For how long should a pilot program proceed before ending so that it would actually be, beneficial to whoever was in the program? So thank you.
Okay. Quickly, I think the short answer is that the pilot project should be forever. And where should it happen? It should happen every half an inch of this planet. That's my short answer. The long answer is, why do we do pilots? We do pilots to prove something, to provide evidence, to get evidence that I have done this with 500 people and it turned out to be good. So you scale it up and implement it as a policy. But today, I think in 2021, we have enormous body of evidence. Enormous body of evidence. We don't need new evidence. I mean, it's this Bob Dylan song that how many miles should a man walk or whatever, or how many wars do you need to say that war is bad? How many people should die before you say it's genocide? I mean, so how many pilots do you need before you say it's a good idea? Those who don't want to listen, they will not listen. Those who will listen, they will listen as soon as there is evidence. Anyway, so, but at the same time, a pilot has a function. A pilot has a function in the sense that it grabs public attention. There will be people, there will be naysayers, and they'll be saying this is a good thing, this is a bad thing. So there is a public debate that happens. Then policymakers get interested. So to that extent, pilot has a function. But now let me come to what I believe now. I think we have always been focusing on policymakers. All our narrative is to convince that policymaker, that politician who is going to implement a basic income. We should do it, but we should not stop just there. I would like to expand that terrain and say that let there be a community basic income. Let us not wait for the governments to implement this. Let each of us come together and find those who are deprived and let us give them 10 people coming together, find another 10 people, give them a basic income for 3 years. I feel to see the effect of a basic income, you should at least give for 3 years. So I strongly believe that we should now move to the lateral horizontal basic income, where the community also begins to take the responsibility of not wanting to see deprivation in this world. I mean, we should not relegate some of these cardinal principles, cardinal sayings, like if you have 5 coats, give 1 to the neighbor. I mean, so there's such a value in that. You don't lose anything if you have 5 coats, you give 1. So why can't we make that into a living principle in our lives? So that each of us will ask ourselves that, okay, I give this much for my basic income. I think all of us should feel that. Only then there will be a revolution from below. Otherwise, we will depend on politicians and they don't do it. And then we get cynical and then we stop talking about it. And then when people ask us, we say, oh, that's a good idea, but no good men here to implement it. So I don't think we should get cynical. I think we should just take it to its logical end. Every human should believe in it, unconditionality. We should not restrict it only to your wife and your daughter and daughter's son, and then that. And somehow the capitalist society has relegated things like love into the private domain. religion into the private domain. You do all these nice things in your private domain inside your house, not in the public square. I want to bring everything to the public square. I want to talk about love and care in the public square and say, I want to really extend what I have to the next man that I see. Why shouldn't we talk about love in public square? Do our governments care enough? As communities, do we care enough for everyone? Where is the care? Where is the care? We should bring care into our minds first and our love. And then I think we do it and show to our governments that it works.
And just to add that, this is, I know, this is living in everybody. So this is not a high ideal, nice to listen. So listen to yourself. This is what people want. And this is what most people are always doing. They are looking for others. They are interested to take care because that makes your life meaningful. That is the feeling of this makes sense. And that's what people want, and they are striving for it. But it's not told to us by the official rules. So it's not an ideal, what you talked about. That is what humans are feeling.
Yeah. And that we are capable of it. I think we have just put that faculty, that entire department aside. All of us are capable of it. How many lazy mothers have you seen when they have given birth to a child? I have not seen one. I've not seen one. So, I mean, I've seen drunkard fathers, but that is a curse. But that is the capacity of a human being, that we are capable of sacrificing for another human being. I think that is our capacity. And I think capitalism wants to convert us human beings into consumers. Yeah. That's what is useful to the system. So we have to fight many battles in order to really, for me, universal basic income is not just a policy. It's the way I should live. It's the way I should think. It's the way I should feel. That's why I said inequality is like statistical thing, but deprivation is something I see. So I want to convert that terminology. Poverty, nobody is responding to word poverty now. It is not ringing any bells. It is not hurting you. So you should have a word that hurts you. If it stops hurting, you're getting used to it. So I think we need a new language. As I was saying, that we need a language of not the master, but of the slave.
Yeah, I like your whole approach, Sarath, about the language, and in particular, bringing all of that to the public discourse. That's so important because, as I think we've all been saying, people have to change. It's not going to be top down. It's going to be bottom up. We're just about out of time. Diana, did you have any final comments before we close out?
Oh, this is very enlightening. I really appreciate your taking time. I know we made it work with everybody's time, but I'd like to conclude it with something that you said when you said we need to scale it up. You said we need to take our pilot programs and turn it into policy. And I truly believe that this is where we need to get our politicians involved. We actually need to change some of our politicians because we're coming out of pandemic. We don't need to do the same old things that we were doing pre-pandemic. We now need to change, come out of it with a change attitude, change mindset, and let's make policies that will create a genuine care economy.
Yeah, Diana, I think when you do a pilot, just ensure that it is universal and don't pick the poor. That is where we are making a mistake. We should, even if you choose a small group of 10 families in Harlem, give it to everyone. There we are making a point. But if you say, okay, you sign up, those who you think you need, you sign up, we are going somewhere else. We are talking the language of the government that identify the poor. Okay, this is a generosity that they say self-identification. I will identify myself as poor and keep proving again and again and again that I'm poor. That I never get out of poverty line. I ride the poverty line. So I think there are issues. Please make sure that it is universal. Every mother, every man, woman, child gets it. Doesn't matter if it is small, and just see what happens to them. Make it 3 years.
Thank you. Okay.
Okay, Sarath, this has been an incredible dialogue. I hope you can come back and visit us again.
Sure. Lovely talking to you, Stuart, Diana, and Enno.
Okay, thank you. This has been.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Yeah.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you all.
Bye-bye.
This has been Community and
Yeah.
Technology on WHCR 90.3 FM, the voice of Harlem. Stay tuned for more news and information. And be sure to check us out next week, 5 to 6 p.m. every Wednesday. Thanks for tuning in.